The intern's bizarre accident, ripping the millionaire's pants at 3 a.m. changed everything. It was the kind of night that twisted the very air, heavy with secrets and the promise of chaos. A lone figure grazed against the moonlit alley behind McGowan Enterprises, the city's most elite law firm. The intern, young and ambitious, brimming with determination, had just spilled coffee on the sapphire silk sheets of his CEO's penthouse. In a desperate attempt to prove himself, he clumsily stumbled into an awkward situation. It was as if fate itself was weaving a mischievous tale when he found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. Just as he reached for the back pocket of the millionaire's crisp trousers, the fabric tore with a sound that sent shivers down his spine. This was no ordinary tear. It ripped through the thin tether of the billionaire's carefully curated facade. Gasps echoed off the wet pavement, eyes wide with shock, faces lit in disbelief. It was as if the universe had cracked open a door to madness. The CEO, a titan of the industry known for his ruthless persona and icy demeanor, turned in slow motion. His expression morphed from confusion to rage. The streets felt tighter, the shadows darker as tension coiled in the air like a rattlesnake ready to strike. Rumors began to swirl, picking up speed like a wildfire. What would be the consequence of such a humiliating mishap? Speculations ran rampant. Would the CEO fire the intern? Demand compensation? Or worse, would he unleash his powerful influence to crush the young man's career before it even began? Whispers flew like embers in the night, he's doomed. There's no coming back from this. It felt like a storm was brewing in the silence, thick and alive with uncertainty. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as panic set in, a flicker of hope remained in the intern's heart. Maybe, just maybe, this incident would lead to something unexpected. If the millionaire was furious, he was also famous for his unpredictable temperament. Instead of boiling anger, the intern anticipated a shift, a crack in that cold exterior. The crowd shifted, eyes fixated on the unfolding drama like a movie premiere. Would this be the moment of his downfall, or a bizarre twist of fate that might change everything? But in a world where billionaires ruled, would a simple accident be the catalyst for his rise or his demise? What lay beyond that rip? The night air thickened with tension, and the answer lingered just outside reach, teasing the edge of possibility. The CEO's furious glare bore down on the intern, scorching the air with a heat that was almost palpable. The crowd held its breath, suspended in a moment that felt like eternity. Time slowed, and the intern's heart raced wildly, each beat louder than the last. He could feel the eyes of his peers burning into him, 1,000 silent judgments hanging in the balance. Are you serious? The millionaire's voice shredded through the silence, loud and sharp like broken glass. You think this is a joke? The intern's throat tightened. Words fumbled in his mind, but fear tangled them beyond recognition. He stood there like a deer in headlights, frozen under the glare of the man who controlled more than just wealth. He held power over dreams and destinies. Sir, I swear, it was an accident. The sputtered words escaped, trembling, desperate. They seemed to dissolve into the night, falling short of the CEO's frigid stare. The crowd murmured. Some snickered, reveling in the spectacle, while others scoffed at the scene unfolding before them. He's toast. A voice called out from the back, inciting laughter, further tightening the knot in the intern's stomach. Then, as if drawn by an invisible thread of disbelief, the millionaire took a step forward, his face twisting into an odd mix of amusement and fury. An accident? Oh, I see you've brought entertainment to my night. His voice dripped with sarcasm, cutting the air like a knife. A ripple of shock spread through the onlookers. The intern's mind raced. This was not how it was supposed to go. Everyone knew the rules of the corporate realm. One mistake could bring a meteoric rise or a catastrophic fall. It was a gamble, a cruel game of chance that separated the wolves from the sheep. He could feel the weight of every expectation pressing down, suffocating him. Maybe I should reward you for your clumsiness. Maybe I'll just make you the laughingstock of this firm. In that instant, the tension shifted. The crowd waited with bated breath, a sea of eyes locked onto the uncertain figure at the center, an unwilling performer in a tragic play. The intern drew in a shaky breath, desperation clawing at his insides. This was his moment. With what felt like a surge of adrenaline, he took a bold step forward. Sir, you can either let this moment define me, or you can show everyone that you're more than just a billionaire with ripped pants. Gasps echoed once more as the weight of his words settled. The CEO paused, momentarily rattled by the unexpected challenge. The energy crackled between them, as if the universe had shifted. For a heartbeat, surprise flickered in the CEO's eyes before it hardened again under layers of icy control. You think you're clever, don't you? The disdain dripped like poison from his lips. Behind him, whispers swirled like a summer storm, morphing into a deafening wind that blurred the edges of reality. What now? The intern thought, every nerve ending alight with fear and determination. Let us see how clever you really are, the CEO smirked, something darker lurking behind the facade. A challenge hung in the air, ripe with threat and an unfamiliar excitement. As the tension crackled, a spark ignited. What lay ahead was a precarious dance between redemption and ruin, and suddenly the stakes felt higher than ever. But just as the night seemed to expand into endless possibilities, a phone buzzed, cutting through the atmosphere like thunder on a clear day. The CEO's face blanched as he pulled the device from his pocket, an unreadable expression flickering across his features. What is it? The intern murmured, instinctively drawn closer. Something's happened. The CEO's voice dropped to a whisper, turning the air thick with suspense. What is going to happen next? The CEO's eyes darkened, absorbing the weight of whatever news had just shattered his composure. Something was brewing, and the intern could feel the shift, like the moment before a storm breaks. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, a tide of anxious whispers rising and falling. Sir, what happened? The intern leaned in, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Each word felt perilous, as if speaking too loudly might unleash some hidden rage within the billionaire. Stay quiet. The CEO snapped, snapping his eyes away from the intern, focusing on the phone. He swiped furiously at the screen, his fingers dancing over the glass like a warrior preparing for battle. The air hung thick, heavy like smoke. The intern's heart raced, wondering what dreadful event had drawn the man's attention away from him. Was it a financial crisis? An embarrassing scandal? You all should be turned away from here, the CEO said to his entourage, waving them off dismissively, yet his eyes remained glued on the screen. This isn't for your ears. A confused murmur swept through the crowd, some speculating what could possibly provoke such a reaction. Should we leave? One intern whispered to another, glancing back and forth at the CEO and the crowd. Suddenly, the CEO let out a sharp, incredulous laugh, not the kind of laughter that brings joy but one that slices through the air like ice. You think this is funny? He bellowed suddenly, his voice rising above the chatter. When the last of our competitors falls into ruins, everyone will know how unfit you are to work here. The crowd fell into a startled silence, each person feeling the chill of his words ripple through them. The intern's throat tightened further. But amid the tension, a flicker of resilience ignited within him. This was no longer just about a ripped piece of fabric. It was about proving himself in a world that thrived on blood, sweat, and broken dreams. Sir, whatever you just read, it's not the end. It could be a turning point. His voice cracked, but it was assertive, pulling the CEO's attention away from the screen momentarily. Anyone can make mistakes. But it's how we respond that defines us. The CEO glared, contemplating the intern's defiance. Time stretched as the atmosphere crackled with unspoken challenges. Why should I care what you think? You're just a kid in the big leagues. You have no idea, but you do. The intern shot back, urgency thickening in his chest. You've run empires. You've built your legacy on adaptability. Rising from larger failures than this. Whatever news you just received can't possibly overshadow that. The CEO's breath caught, the spark of a challenge igniting behind his eyes. He was no longer just furious, curiosity crept in. What makes you think I don't run from a little adversity? Because you won T, the intern urged, desperation lacing his words. You'll face it head-on like the titan you are. You encouraged many to do the same. You taught me that. For a moment, the crowd murmured, stunned at the audacity of the intern's challenge. Would they witness a transformation in the CEO? The man's expression hardened again, tension bubbling under the surface. Then suddenly, his phone buzzed again, shaking him out of contemplation. He stared at it, his features pale, caught between fury and something else. What do they want now? He growled, but uncertainty tainted his voice. The intern stepped closer, inching forward without thought, compelled by something that felt bigger than either of them. Just answer it. Whatever it is, you'll handle it. The CEO looked at him, like he was just weighing him up, appraising the boldness. Would he dare to take the plunge, or pull back? Finally, the CEO pressed a button, the screen illuminating his anxious face just as it began to buzz with notifications, news alerts flashing reminders of what was at stake. He exhaled sharply. This better not be what I think. An unsettling chill washed over the crowd, anticipation crackling like static electricity. What's on those screens? A voice from the crowd suddenly erupted, breaking the fragile moment. With barely suppressed intensity, the CEO swiped through notifications, and a single news headline flashed. Company in turmoil, assets frozen. Scandal set to unfold. The atmosphere shifted, the stakes rising like a tide as the intern felt his heart sink. What next? He wondered, a sense of dread mingling with urgency. This wasn't just about pants anymore, the entire corporate facade was crumbling. How would they navigate the chaos? Would they sink together or rise stronger? Chaos erupted in the air as the CEO's eyes fixated on the screen, a whirlwind of disbelief and rage enveloping him. The crowd inhaled sharply, every ear tuned for the next move. Whispers merged into a dissonance of panic and speculation. What did this mean for their jobs? What about their futures? What does this even mean? The intern felt a knot tightening in his stomach as he clutched his own phone, desperately refreshing the news feed. Nothing prepared him for what he was about to see next. The CEO was now pacing, his brow darkened, each stride a tick of the clock towards uncertainty. It means our credibility is on the line. He shouted, voice trembling with fury. One misstep, and everything I've built will come crashing down. In the midst of the ordeal, the intern felt surreal. The building was alive, each flickering light syncing with his heartbeat. With every tick of the CEO's pacing, his own pulse quickened, mirroring the tension hanging thick in the air. But sir, every cloud has a silver lining, he dared to speak, though the bravado of his earlier words flickered faintly. Maybe we can turn this into an opportunity. A chance to reinvent ourselves. An incredulous laugh escaped the CEO. Opportunity? You think a scandal is an opportunity? They're circling like vultures. They smell blood. The bitterness in his words stung. Take control. The intern urged, desperation clawing at him. You taught us about resilience. You can't let this break you. The CEO paused, an almost imperceptible flicker of intrigue sparked within his cold gaze. Just for a heartbeat, he seemed to consider it. But the anger surged back, driving him forward. This isn't a game, kid. You don't understand the stakes. Just then, an alarm blared from the building intercom, shrill and jarring, sending tremors of anxiety through everyone present. Evacuate immediately. Repeat, evacuate immediately. Like a strike of lightning, panic froze the room as employees began to tumble out of their chairs, the reality of the warning piercing through the atmosphere. Faces were painted with confusion and fear. What is happening? Someone shouted, glancing toward the exit. Get in line. The CEO ordered as he mobilized, his voice sharp as he began ushering people toward safety. Now. Move. But the intern felt rooted to the spot, adrenaline surging through him. What about the news? What about the company? He couldn't help himself. He had to know. No time. The CEO snapped, his own eyes wild with chaos. You stick with me, or you run for the door. Choose quickly. Against all instincts, the intern chose to follow the man who appeared untouchable just hours before. If the world was on fire, he wanted to be near the flames. As they stumbled down the corridor, the tension writhed palpably, a tightrope teetering over unknown chasms. But amid the fear and shouting, something shifted. The CEO's expression changed, the fire of indignation melded with something deeper, a hint of vulnerability. Is this really where it ends? The CEO muttered, half to himself. I don't believe that. We can fight. The intern replied. We're stronger together. People always say that, the CEO snapped, though weariness seeped into the corners of his voice. But do you know what I've sacrificed for this? The intern halted, pulling the CEO back for a moment. Then let us not waste whatever time we have left. We prepare for the worst while fighting the rumors. In that moment, eyes locked, an unspoken understanding simmered between them. Then a deafening crash shattered the silence ahead, a sound that reverberated like a gunshot among their huddled desperation. An overwhelming sense of dread surged within the intern as fear stomped down his resolve. Would they even make it out alive? Would they be swallowed whole by the very chaos that threatened their existence? Get behind me. The CEO ordered, a sense of resolve creeping back, as he steeled himself against whatever lay beyond the bend in the hallway, but just as they started to move again, an unexpected figure emerged from the shadows, sending the crowd into fresh disarray. Stop right there. Came a voice, half harsh, half familiar. The intern's heart raced as he recognized the silhouette. It was someone from the CEO's past, someone who knew more than they should. What was going to happen next? Would the truth be unleashed, or would it remain buried behind walls of deceit? The tension crackled in the air as the figure stepped into the light. A sharp gasp echoed through the throng of employees, a collective realization that sent the room spiraling deeper into chaos. The intern's eyes widened as he attempted to piece together the familiar features of the newcomer. Laura. The CEO's voice wavered between shock and anger, a mix that could ignite flames. What are you doing here? The woman stood with an unyielding gaze, arms crossed defiantly against her chest. I came for the truth, before it's too late. Her tone dripped with something dangerously venomous. The CEO's past mask behind her words hinted at dark secrets, the kind that could unearth the entire company. Around them, murmurs grew louder. Employees exchanged whispered fears, glancing nervously at the emergency exit, but no one dared to move. They were frozen between loyalty and self-preservation. A storm brewed in the CEO's eyes, but the intern felt the air shift. You think you can just walk back in here and destroy everything I've built? He retorted, the bravado in his voice masking the quiver in his hands. In that moment, every ounce of bravado seemed to fade as doubt crept in. I'm here to save you from a fate worse than your scandal, Laura shot back, her voice cutting sharply through the uncertainty. You've lost sight of who your enemies really are. Enough. The CEO yelled, though exhaustion edged into his bark. If you've got something to say, say it now. We don't have time for games. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, and the intern could feel the nails of anxiety biting deeper into his palms. What do you know? He asked, trying to insert his urgency into the fray, though fear clawed at his throat. Why now? Laura straightened, her expression suddenly grave. There are forces working against you, ones that go far beyond a mere scandal. I couldn't stay silent any longer. Something big is coming. She hesitated, the silence stretching and filling the air with ominous weight. And if you don't act fast, it will change everything for all of us. An explosion of tension gripped the room, coiling tightly like a spring loaded to snap. The intern's thoughts raced, trying to grasp what Laura could mean. Was this a warning, or was her resurfacing part of a bigger game? Tell us, then. The CEO barked, his frustration boiling over. What do we need to do? I've got proof, Laura said, her voice steadying. Files that will expose those responsible for your downfall. But you need to trust me. Murmurs ricocheted through the crowd again. Trust? In that moment, it felt like a trembling piece of rope that could snap at any moment. The intern caught the CEO's gaze. It was a tempest of rage, betrayal, and a fragile thread of desperation. What if you're playing us? The intern shouted, unable to keep the panic from his voice. What if you're the one causing all of this? I'm not your enemy. Laura cried, exasperation leaking through her steady facade. But if you don't follow my lead right now, you will be crushed before you even know what hit you. The intern felt his stomach turn. They were cornered, faced with uncertainty from all sides. The CEO seemed to hesitate, grappling with a decision that could lead to salvation or destruction. I don't have time for this. He snarled. We need to get out of here now. Give me just a moment, Laura insisted, stepping forward. Let me show you who to be afraid of. Then, without warning, a loud crash resonated again. The building trembled beneath them, rattling lights flickering like nervous fireflies. The sharp sound of metal skidding across the floor sent people scattering, screams erupting. The intern felt his heart quicken, eyes darting from the CEO to Laura. Why was this happening now? Follow me. Laura cried, urgency lacing her voice. Or this scandal will be the least of your worries. Could they trust her? Could they afford to not to? The walls around them were closing in, reality morphing into a place too dangerous to navigate. With adrenaline coursing through him, the intern felt pulled in two directions toward safety or into the heart of chaos. As they moved, the reality of their choices bore down on them like a dark cloud. Would they summon the courage to follow Laura into the unknown? Or would they succumb to the chaos that threatened to engulf them all? Time was slipping away, like sand through their fingers. And as they stepped away from the doorway, the first real revelation began to unravel. The room erupted into a cacophony as panic spilled onto the polished floors. Employees surged toward the exits, their faces twisted in fear. The intern instinctively grabbed Laura's arm, his grip tight, steadying himself against the chaos swirling around them. Laura, we can't just stand here. What the hell is going on? His voice was frantic, barely cutting through the din. I need you to listen, she said sharply, breaking through the noise. They've been watching you. The very people you trust the most are plotting against you. The CEO was scrambling, trying to regain control as the crowd panicked. Everyone, stay calm. He shouted, but the screams only grew louder, drowning him out. We can't stay here. The intern insisted. People were pushing against him, each desperate to escape. Then we need to move. Follow me, it's the only way out, Laura instructed and darted toward the side door, pulling the intern along with her. They maneuvered through the throng, Elizabeth's steely resolve pulling him forward. His heart raced as he caught glimpses of wide eyes, people stumbling, and the sense of impending dread choking the air. Each step led them deeper into uncertainty, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Laura wasn't just a savior. She could be hiding something darker. The hallways felt alive, each flickering light casting long shadows that danced eerily along the walls. What exactly do you have? He demanded as they zigzagged down the corridor, urgency threading every word. I have the files, she declared, but something flickered in her eyes, a brief glint of hesitation. But it's not just any files. It's the truth about everyone involved. What do you mean, everyone? You can't be serious. He spat cautiously, grappling with the implications. That's not just a scandal, that's destruction. The tension in the air thickened as they reached an intersection. Laura glanced back, her face a mask of determination, but he caught her breath in sharply. This might not go the way you think, she warned. Suddenly, an explosion of sound shattered the moment. A deafening crash from the stairs above shook them to their core. Fragments of ceiling tiles fell like confetti, and fear clutched at the intern, constricting his throat. Time is up. Laura shouted. We have to go. Now. Without a second thought, he pulled her out of the way, avoiding a plume of dust that fell from the now trembling ceiling. They dashed around the corner just in time to see the emergency exit sealed with ominous heavy doors, now a prison in their anxiety. The chaos behind them echoed in the silence that enveloped them. Where do we go? He gasped, panic rising within him. What's the plan? The basement, she responded, urgency crystallizing her focus. That's where they're going to strike next. We can hide there until it's safe to make our way out. But what if he hesitated, shaking his head to fend off the thoughts creeping in? He tried to keep the focus on the moment, but a rush of dread gripped him. What if we get trapped? What if we will find the truth, Laura interrupted fiercely. And we'll protect what's left of this place. If we don't act now, whatever's coming will wipe us all out without mercy. A part of him wanted to pull away, to flee in another direction, but he felt her resolve drawing him back, part fear, part fierce loyalty to the truth she promised. The intern took a deep breath, nodding slowly, his determination melding with hers. As they wound down the stairwell, echoes of chaos faded, replaced by a daunting silence that felt almost suffocating. Each step reverberated like a heartbeat, their breaths quickening with the anxiety of the unknown. They reached the basement door, the heavy wood seeming to taunt them with its presence. The intern hesitated, pressing his palm against the cold metal. They were on the brink of exposure. Did he dare step into the shadow of hidden truth? And as they descended into that darkness, the room trembled again above them. A sharp bang resounded through the structure, shivers coursing down his spine as if the building itself begged to reveal its secrets. What awaited them in the depths? As Laura pushed the door open, shadows began to stir, leaving him to wonder with a sinking heart, had they just entered their salvation or unleashed their destruction? The door creaked as it swung open, revealing a cavernous basement steeped in shadows. The air was thick with the scent of damp concrete, and the lights flickered above, throwing erratic beams across the room. Panic still drummed in the intern's chest as he hesitated, unsure of the darkness that loomed ahead. Laura, are you sure about this? He whispered, his voice barely audible against the backdrop of silence. She stepped inside, determination etched on her face. We have to trust this place has more than just darkness. I know there's a way out. We just need to find it before they do. As she scanned the room, a faint glimmer caught his eye, a series of metal filing cabinets huddled against the far wall. The curiosity tugged at his instinct, drawing him closer. But as he took a step forward, the ground beneath him thudded, his foot landing on something soft. He looked down, his stomach dropping. Laura! He gasped, unable to contain his horror. She turned to see what he had tripped over, a crumpled mass of papers, crammed in a corner. What did you find? But as she stepped closer, her expression shifted. The papers were not just lost documents, they were shredded remains of a confidential report. The files, she murmured, kneeling beside the mess. Her hand trembled as she picked up one of the pages, a string of words jumping at them like a warning. The intern felt the heaviness in his gut again. Was this what they were looking for? The cracks in a facade far more rotten than he had imagined. Suddenly, a low rumble reverberated through the basement. The walls began to shake, and dust cascaded from the ceiling. We need to move. Laura yelled, urgency flooding her voice. Where? He shouted back, overwhelmed by the sudden tremors. Over there. The storage room. She pointed to a door at the far end, barely visible through the gathering darkness. It felt like an impossible destination, but they had no choice. Their hearts raced as they sprinted across the room, each second echoing their mounting dread. As they reached the door, another crash echoed above them. It was as if the building were collapsing, ready to swallow them whole. Laura shoved the door open, and they tumbled inside, hearts pounding against their ribs like frantic drums. Inside, the light flickered, revealing shelves filled with dust-covered crates and old furniture. Sensing momentary safety, they breathed in shallow gasps, the panic still clinging to them like a dark cloak. "What are we doing here?" he asked, trying to catch his breath. "We keep searching. The truth is here, I can feel it," she replied, determination flooding her again. As she moved deeper into the storage room, he followed, brows furrowing in apprehension. As they rifled through the crates, rusted tools and faded documents fell away to reveal something unexpected: a hidden compartment in the wall. It looked large enough for the two of them. "Laura, come look at this," he exclaimed, pointing. But just as they approached, the shuddering intensified. The floor vibrated beneath their feet, and a gasp escaped her lips as she felt it too. No, no, no! Before they could react, the wall began to split open, an ominous creaking sound echoing between them. He darted back, and in that split second, a dark figure emerged from the newly formed gap, silhouetted in the dim light. "Who is there?" The intern's voice cracked, adrenaline igniting fear into every nerve of his body. The figure stepped forward, and time froze, their eyes locking with the unknown. In that chilling moment, terror gripped him, and the weight of secrets twisted around them like a vine threatening to choke them alive. "Did you think you could just find the truth?" The voice was smooth yet dripping with malice. "I'm afraid that's not how this works." What terrible revelation did the darkness hold? As the figure stepped closer, shadows clung around it like a shroud, leaving the intern trembling in anticipation of the chaos about to unfold. Would they ever escape this nightmare? Laura's breath hitched as the figure loomed before them. The dim light cut through the shadows, revealing a tall man dressed in a dark suit, his eyes glinting with a predatory gleam. Fear coursed through the intern, and a lump formed in his throat as he realized how trapped they truly were. "Who are you?" Laura demanded, her voice steady but her body shaking. "Let's just say I'm not your savior." "I'm the one you've been warned about," the figure said, tilting his head, savoring their fear like a fine wine. "You shouldn't have come here." The intern could feel the walls closing in. There was something sinister in the man's expression, an unsettling confidence that sent chills down his spine. We were just looking for answers. We didn't mean to intrude," he stammered. "Answers?" The man laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "You don't even know what you're getting yourself into." Laura stepped closer, grounding him. "What do you want with us? If you know something, just tell us." A flash of something like amusement flickered across the man's face. "You think I owe you an explanation? You're in my domain now." He took a step forward, and the ground beneath them trembled again. Dust spewed from the ceiling like tiny shooting stars. "Run!" the intern shouted as their instincts kicked in. Backing away, they turned and bolted toward the door, fear spurring their legs to move faster than they ever had. But as they reached for the handle, it slammed shut with a deafening thud. They both turned, eyes wide, only to see the figure had transformed into a blur, gliding toward them just a heartbeat later. His mouth curled into an ominous smile, revealing two perfect teeth. "Leaving already? But we were just beginning to enjoy each other's company." His voice dripped with a malice both captivating and horrifying. They scrambled back, adrenaline flooding their veins, and in that chaos, they knocked over a stack of crates, sending splinters flying. The noise echoed like thunder in the confined space, but there was no time to contemplate the damage. It only fueled the dark figure's amusement. "Stop!" Laura cried, her voice breaking as desperation clawed at her. She grabbed the intern's arm, pulling him back further into the dimness of the room. "We need to find a way out. As they slipped behind a rusted filing cabinet, their eyes darted around the storage room for an escape. Papers fluttered softly in the air like frightened birds, nothing offered any hope, only the growing dread of their impending doom. The moment hung heavy, thick with darkness. The intern could feel his heart pounding in his ears as if wanting to scream a primal call to flee. But deep down, something sparked within him, a determination to fight against this looming shadow. "Stay quiet or he'll hear us," he whispered. They barely dared to breathe as the figure prowled the perimeter of the room, his movements cat-like, meticulous. "Your search is about to come to an end," he called out, his voice echoing eerily. "The truth is more dangerous than you realize." A shudder raced through the intern's spine. That was it, the truth. It wasn't just documents hidden in the shadows, it was a web of deception that tied back to their lives. They had ventured into a rabbit hole far deeper than either could have anticipated. Suddenly, the intern noticed something glimmering at the base of the wall, the edge of another hidden compartment. "Laura, over here." This might be before he could finish, the figure turned sharply toward them, eyes narrowing. "Ah, looking for secrets, are we? Let me help you." What if this revelation could unveil the very fabric of their reality? The stakes had just risen as the threat loomed larger than before. With fear pushing them onward, the intern and Laura scrambled toward the compartment, their last thread of hope dangling tantalizingly in front of them. Could they unlock the secret before it was too late, or would they fall prey to the figure's nightmarish game? The intern's heart raced as he reached for the edge of the glimmering compartment. Sweat dripped from his brow, and he focused on the faint outline, desperately hoping it led to freedom. Behind him, the tall man loomed closer, his presence like a shadowing storm. "Stop right there!" Laura shouted, her voice breaking the tense silence. She shoved the intern aside and faced the figure with fierce determination. "You won't stop us." "Foolish girl," the man hissed, his eyes narrowing. "This room has seen many who dared challenge me, and they all pay the price." Ignoring the fear wrapping around him like a noose, the intern dove into the compartment, driven by a mix of hope and desperation. It was cramped, dust swirling in the hazy darkness. Briefly, he cursed the clutter as he pushed aside remnants of old files, the musty smell choking him. Come on," he muttered, rummaging through the unknown. He felt something cool and metallic, clutching it tightly. It felt like a key, something, anything that might unlock their escape. Behind him, Laura and the figure clashed. "You have no power here," she screamed, defiance burning in her eyes. The intern could only hear the scuffle, the sound of fabric ripping, followed by a cold laugh from the man, sending chills racing down his spine. "Power comes from knowledge." The figure's voice twisted through the air. "The truth is inescapable. You can't hide from it." With a sudden yank, Laura was thrown against the wall, the loud bang reverberating in the tiny space. The intern's heart dropped. "No!" he shouted, forcing himself to focus. Gripping the shiny object, he pulled it from the dust and emerged from the cramped compartment just in time to witness Laura stagger to her feet, defiance etched across her face despite the fear that lingered in her eyes. "You think you can claim victory?" she panted, her breath uneven. "You've underestimated us." The figure smiled, unperturbed. "How adorable. The mouse thinks it can defeat the cat." He took a step forward, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop, encasing them in ice. "But I've seen the depths of despair." "Is that so?" the intern yelled, clutching the metallic object in his hand. "Then maybe you'll recognize this." In the flickering light, he revealed what he held, a strange key-like device, engraved with symbols that felt oddly familiar. The figure's laughter faltered, shadows creeping into his eyes. "Where did you find that?" "It's not just a key." Laura stepped beside the intern, her voice steady now, infused with a newfound strength. "It's a way out. We don't need your truth. We're writing our own." A surge of power radiated through them as they grasped hands tightly. The ambient air shifted, vibrating with a raw energy that pushed against the man. He gritted his teeth, his features morphing, flickers of rage bubbling just beneath his smooth facade. "You naive children!" he bellowed. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." And then, the room began to tremble again, the shadows swirling, and for a brief moment, the air crackled with possibility. The intern and Laura stood firm, anchoring themselves against the chaos unfurling all around them. "Now, let us see what happens when we unlock this," Laura shouted, and with a rush of energy, they plunged the metallic device toward a hidden panel that flickered with an eerie blue light. A blast of heat ignited the air, and the figure reared back, his form shattering like glass, reflections scattering across the walls. "No!" His voice was a mixture of fury and fear, echoing even as he dissolved into nothingness. But just as victory surged in their chests, the panel emitted a blinding light. The intern and Laura clung to each other, feeling the room shake violently as it collapsed around them. "Is this it?" the intern shouted, panic rising. "Are we finally free, or have we just unleashed something worse?" As the light enveloped them, they felt themselves being pulled, bodies twisting in a whirlwind of brightness. They screamed, unsure of what waited for them beyond the blinding glow, what awaited them on the other side. Would they find salvation or fall straight into another trap of shadows? The blinding light surrounded the intern and Laura as they felt their bodies pulled in different directions. Fear gripped their hearts, but hope flickered at the edges of the chaos, telling them it had to lead somewhere better. With a jolt, the world shifted, then released them into a clear, quiet room. The harshness of the previous chaos melted away, replaced by the calm hum of fluorescent lights overhead and the faint scent of fresh paint. As their eyes adjusted, they saw they were standing in an office much like the one from which they had just fled, but devoid of the panic, the shouting, and the terror. They stood apart for a moment, dazed and unsure of what had just happened. The intern staggered back, bracing himself against a sleek wooden desk. With a shaky breath, he looked at Laura, who appeared equally bewildered but eventually steadied herself. "What just happened?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I think we escaped," he managed, still feeling the adrenaline coursing through him. But at what cost? Their surroundings offered a stark contrast to the chaos they had just known. Everything seemed polished and serene. But before they could dwell longer on the unsettling tranquility, the door swung open, and they turned in unison to see the CEO standing in the doorway. His expression was transformed, no longer a mask of rage, but rather a storm of confusion and relieved disbelief. "Are you two alive?" His voice broke slightly, revealing a hint of emotion that hadn't been present before. For a moment, all his cold demeanor seemed to melt away, leaving just a man left standing amidst the ruins of his world. "Yes," the intern exclaimed, stepping forward. "We escaped, but what about the scandal? The chaos? The man from before?" The CEO's brow furrowed as he stepped into the office, scanning the space as if to reassure himself they were indeed safe. "Worry about that later. We need to get out of here before." A sudden crashing sound echoed from outside, cutting him off. They all jerked toward the sound, the tension reasserting itself, weaving through the air like an electric current. "What was that?" Laura pressed, her stomach nodding again. The CEO clenched his jaw and turned to them, the fire returning in his eyes. "It's not over yet. There are still people who want to see this company crumble. They think it's weak." The intern straightened, determination flooding back. "Well, then we can't let them win. We've seen the truth, and we know how to fight against this now. Together." Laura nodded in agreement. "We can bring the evidence to light, correct the narratives. It doesn't have to end like this." A shadow crossed the CEO's features at their fierce resolve, and he straightened, visibly centering himself. "You're right. I have a crew that can help. We can turn this around. It won't be easy, but if we stand united, we might just have a chance. Then let us make them listen." The intern felt courage swell in his chest, transforming the fear into fuel. They needed to be proactive, there was no more waiting in the shadows. They had the potential to reshape the narrative, to uncover the corruption buried beneath the surface. With that, they formed a tight circle, energized, unified in purpose. "But we move fast," the CEO commanded, "posture solid. We can't let them think we're weak. Let us meet in the conference room now." As they emerged from the safety of the office, moving with urgency yet newfound purpose, each step felt lighter, less constrained. Outside the door, the building bustled with anxious employees, but instead of dread, the intern felt something shift within him. In the conference room, they found a collaborative space filled with their closest allies. It was a moment to regroup, to strategize, all connected by the yearning to build something better from the wreckage. The CEO laid down the plans, fueled by suggestions from the intern and Laura. They brainstormed, ideas flowing like a waterfall of determination. Each plan drawn out on the large whiteboards became a thread weaving them together, strengthening their resolve. Hours passed, but the energy buzzing in the room seemed to transform the atmosphere. The fears that once lingered morphed into something more: resolve, trust, a shared commitment to uncovering the truth. The intern knew at that moment, guided by Laura's fierce spirit and the CEO's vision, they would rise from the ashes of the billionaire's pants ripped that fateful night. Amidst the uncertainty and chaos, they would fight for their futures under a banner forged from the truth they had once almost lost. Before long, victory would be theirs, not just in hiding, but in standing tall against the tides of turmoil. And so, they would rise. Don't wait another moment. You need to subscribe now to this channel so you won't miss any exclusive stories like this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters more than ever. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. We want to hear from you. And don't leave your friends out. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.